to allow for the ships to kind of move. So what we have is a very unique situation wherein you have your land edge, a retaining wall, and then there is a steep drop. Like there'll be a steep drop of, like, let's say 3 meters to 15 meters. Sometimes, which kind of happen at the edge. That's primarily because of the dredging activity that they do regularly for the ships. So in a river edge, you could have ghats, and there could be a gentle movement of like kind of walking into the riverbed using those ghats. But out here, the section may be slightly different. Even if you want to create a ghat, you can create one, but then at the end, you'll need to have a cantilever deck or a platform which is kind of protected, because the base of the backwater may be way deeper than what you think it is. So, I mean, the steps will not lead you into the water. So, there is a very interesting project. I don't know which country that is. I can just quickly find out and tell you. Wherein they had created a sea organ, uh, using the waves. Yeah, it's in Croatia. It's called the Croatia Sea Organ. I mean, if you could just Google it up, you would find multiple examples of it, wherein it's actually a very similar situation. So there are steps, but then those steps are not meant so that you walk into the water, but rather it's just like a seating edge wherein people sit and kind of view water. But there, what they've also done is very interesting because of the fact that the waves kind of act on that edge. What they've done is, they've kind of created a system wherein the seawater kind of pushes the seawater kind of gets pushed into these different holes which are there, and that kind of produces sound. And because of this rhythmic activity of the sea, it kind of feels like an organ which is being played by the waves. So it's a very interactive kind of a landscape. So I mean, when we talk of the edge, I mean, like what we are looking at is an edge like that. Yeah, so that's one of the primary differences that I can. The other faculty members can respond as well. I'm sorry, I probably spoke a bit more. Go ahead, please, Swati. Over to you.
I was actually sorry. Um, I was actually trying to bring in some photographs to show.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
sorry, I'm just diverting again to that. Um,
Okay, okay, sure.
so when we actually got the site the first time, this is what it was. It was a garbage dump, and we had to kind of clean up to 2 meters deep to kind of get rid of this, and also it had leached into the soil. The garbage had kind of let its effluents into the soil and created its own issues with the soil itself as well. But these are some of the initial site kind of photographs. Yeah, this is towards the Nala side. So that's basically the large dump of garbage that we had at site. And I'd just like to show you some more images of the flood that we had, received, and how deep it was and what the whole situation at that point was like. I'll just please show you that as well. Okay, sorry, I think it's sorry, Sandeep. I think I'll have to do this another day. These files are just not opening for some
No,
reason.
no, that's okay. That's okay. It's fine. Essentially, one of the key ingredients that key ideas of landscape design, especially in coastal areas and in low-lying cities, is the fact that in the past we've always kind of looked at draining the water away from our site as quickly as is possible. So that was the engineering marvel that one would strive to achieve. The water should flow into the drain and it should go away from the site. But over time, we've kind of overcome that naivety, and we've kind of realized that that we cannot fight with water beyond a certain level. So the idea is to kind of hold water and then allow it to kind of hold it within a site and then gently release it. And that's not a fight which one site can do alone. So if imagine if there was a city and if all the sites kind of did that, then the fact that flash floods which could happen at some other area, waterlogging which may happen in some other areas, could be completely kind of averted. So I mean that's the new ways in which the paradigm shifts of kind of working with water that landscape architects have been seeing in the recent past. uh, do the other faculty members want to respond to this, or kind of add in projects that they've worked on, or some ideas that they've kind of come across? I mean, faculty and students. I mean, I just pointed out to the faculty members because I thought.
Sandeep, I'd just like to add to this actually in
Yeah, go
reference
ahead.
to the project that I was talking about. Yeah, while we were, designing as being a little bit more resilient, etc., I think, but constantly we had to, think about what would happen if the other sites around us started to, become hard paved again and, hold water the way they did. And is that water going to then kind of travel from above the boundary wall and seep into our site, or depending on how they deal with their site, how would we respond over time? And I think that again goes back to the point that you were making, that everybody needs to kind of get together and make the attempt to understand what is the responsible response to water. And it can't just be done on one side and think that this is still in a smaller way that we are being able to contribute. But if everybody did the same thing, I think it would be a larger ecosystem that thrives better, and we would not have the fury that we are we're facing. So, in a sense, that the idea of somebody else becoming hardscaped then because makes my boundary wall up to 4 meters instead of making it 2 meters, because I do not want the water to then kind of climb up and come out from there. So. Um, Many such things, and I think it's just important to collectively make the effort to move towards a responsible insert.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for that, sir. Designing with water is also, a kind of a double-edged, kind of a situation, because there are places where we have too much of water, and the same
Mhm.
areas may also face, a lack of water also at some point of time. Uh, Now, one great example is Auroville. If all of you know where Auroville is, it's one small town near Pondicherry. Which is essentially designed and developed by a sect called the Aurobindo Ashram. So Auroville is essentially in a dry and arid area, even though it's very close to the sea. Owing to the fact that it's on the eastern coast, and it's highly, and the kind of geology that they have, it's a very arid area. So when they started the designing of the city, they basically created a larger bioregion all around that particular settlement, wherein there were these ravines which were there. These ancient paleo channels of ancient streams which were there. They kind of revived them over time, and the bioclimatic conditions of that place have kind of improved massively in the last 30 years, 30 or 40 years. So that's also a wonderful case study if somebody wants to kind of look at the other end of the spectrum, wherein there is less amount of water, but then how do you kind of use them? And that's also a contemporary case study. And if possible, once the COVID pandemic situation kind of clears up, I would urge you that all of you should definitely make a visit there, at least once in a lifetime. Yeah. Thanks.
Sandeep, with reference to our studio exercise or the AD studio exercise, are they in the AD studio allowed to break the property edge wall with the canal or the water body, and are they allowed to step it back and so on and so forth?
Yeah, yeah, they are. They are. It's up to us. So on Monday we had a discussion with the AD faculty. So essentially, we have these meetings wherein, we kind of, kind of dovetail in different subjects and see what are the cross learnings. So we had a meeting last Saturday, and then on Monday, I was asked to kind of present our landscape studio to the AD faculty, which I did. And I think the response was phenomenal. I mean, they all thought that it was a great idea that we are kind of, doing this. And we are completely free to kind of blur the boundaries, kind of uh, break the edges and get the water in, Arjun. So yeah, that's completely allowed.
Okay, so we will also be then taking that allowance into our studio as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Which is why it's important for the students to kind of, understand, that there are possibilities which are much beyond, kind of holding the water within the site. Like they can blur the edges, they can, kind of look at letting the water enter in, kind of creating an urban public edge there. That's all there. Yeah.
Okay, and this again, just for my understanding, I'm just trying
Mhm.
to, if you're in Cochin and you have a property along the canal, are you, according to DC regulations, do you have to maintain the wall, or are you allowed to break it and take the water in?
You are allowed to take the water in as long as you are not encroaching into the water. So
Okay,
getting
all
the
right,
water in is allowed, and there's a reason why that is allowed is also because many of the boat houses that you see, the boats are essentially it's like a car park, like you kind of park your boat
right.
into your plot. So you have to kind of get the water in for that, so that you don't leave the boat in the channel area. So it's allowed. Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Right. Yeah. Sure. So do
Okay,
the
then
students
then
have?
okay, then a quick follow-up question. Let's say, I mean, a part of our site is supposed to be a ferry wharf, right?
Mhm.
And so for our landscape design, do we want students to bring the water in for the ferry wharf, or can they bring the water in only for some specific landscape program?
Uh, I think I think it's up to them actually. It can be either ways.
But then don't we have a problem with the ferry wharf taking up too much space?
But by the ferry wharf, you basically mean the
I mean,
embarking point, right? The embarkation jetty, right?
yeah, I mean, if you bring the
Yeah,
water
yeah,
in for boat parking and then there's an embarkation point that takes up like half the site because of the amount of space required for the boats to move,
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
would be problematic for our landscape brief, no?
Yeah, yeah. No, so it's like there are some students who would kind of want to do a landscape wherein they want to, kind of get the water in and their buildings kind of cantilever over them. For all those purposes, they can do it. But for the ferry wharf, the jetty can be outside into the water.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
allowed.
okay,
The
okay,
boats can be there. Yeah, there is
okay.
no regulation that the boats have to be inside. So it's only these private boats which don't have control.
Okay.
Sometimes they can veer away, right? Those are the ones that need to be parked in within the distance.
All right. Thank you.
Ferry wharf could be outside. Yeah, absolutely. It could be on. This is just the way that they're showing it. But that's how it is all around. Any other questions, guys, students? Saifta, Bandita, uh, Shruti, do you guys want to add something, or can we move to our channels?
No question from my end,
I
Sandeep. I'm good.
I think it was a wonderful presentation by Swati. No questions as of now. We can move ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Shruti.
Yeah.